Enterprise and entrepreneurship can be taught and learnt like any new skill. In this way, learning to be enterprising and entrepreneurial is akin to learning calligraphy or artisanal baking. With the right amount of training, the correct mindset, and enough repetition, anyone can gain expertise. You don't have to be a business and management student to practice enterprise and entrepreneurship. In fact, most new businesses are set up by individuals who have a science, engineering, and even fine arts background. You also don't need any prior learning in business subjects such as accounting, marketing, or economics. None at all. Enterprise and entrepreneurship skills are such that even if you don't end up setting up your own business, having these skills will enhance your ability to be entrepreneurial, being an entrepreneurial employee, which is exceedingly valuable for any corporation. If you know which skills will enhance your entrepreneurial aptitude and the way you could practice these skills, then there is no doubt that you will build in yourself all the necessary qualities to one day do entrepreneurship.
Hello, Ryan.
Hello, Punita.
People often ask, what can I do to become more enterprising, more entrepreneurial? How would you describe the steps people need to make before embarking on their entrepreneurial journeys?
The short answer to that question is that students need to become more skillful. We must realize that being enterprising and entrepreneurial is a behavior set which can be correctly learned with adequate and sustained practice. The more practice you do, the better you become. Now, learning to become enterprising and entrepreneurial takes effort. No one in history has ever magically woken up one day and realized that they knew new language or could box like Muhammad Ali. To learn a new language or to be able to play a musical instrument or even do something basic like skip a rope, one needs to clock up many hours of sustained practice. So the approach I'm recommending is that, first of all, identify the key skills you need in order to be enterprising and entrepreneurial. Then understand the routines, the practice routines you need in order to perform those routines, practice those skills correctly. And then 3, immerse yourself with diligence, practice those skills till the time you master them and you're an expert.
What is this notion of enterprise you were just speaking about, and why is it important?
Well, to be very concise, I describe enterprise as 2 distinct abilities: thinking and action. Being able to creatively think about problems and their solutions, and to take affirmative action to realize such thinking's potential. So it's 2 things, thinking and action. Now let's look at Farhan Masood, for example, an extraordinary technology entrepreneur from Pakistan. At age 14, he had decent computer graphics skills. He thought about the problem of textile design in Pakistan. The local industry faced a shortage of designers and didn't have adequate software. He knew he had the skills to create the software which the mills could use for designing new patterns. Now, he could have chosen to not think about this problem. After all, he was just 14. Who would take a 14-year-old teenager seriously anyway? Or think, well, I might have some skills, but I cannot really create a software that anyone would actually want to use. So perhaps these questions never occurred to him, or they might have occurred to him. But what he did was he took action. He took affirmative action without any guarantee or a contract in place for this new software. He plunged into action and created a prototype. Now, he could have stopped there, but his goal was not just merely to develop the software, but he wanted to see it used commercially. Using his friend's connection, he set up the software at a local textile manufacturer for a trial, and this is important. He did it for free. He wasn't expecting payment. He wanted to see if the mill owner would like the software. And in fact, they did, and they paid Farhan for it. Now, this must have been so redeeming for him. So we can see from his case that the combination of thinking and doing coming together, they form the basis for enterprise. So in other words, coming up with an idea and then making it happen.
Can you give an example of an enterprise skill and how to practice it?
Well, there are many. And out of the many, we have proposed 7 key enterprise skills any student can master if they put the work in. Now, they sound simple enough and easy, but we have people in their 40s and even in their 50s who still struggle to exercise personal effectiveness simply because they have not had the time to practice it or they have not been taught properly. All these skills have very specific dimensions. So it would be important not to jump to conclusions about what they might mean, figure out what the skill actually means first. So we must understand what the skill is, and then by learning it, what behavior change it might introduce in you. So, say for example, intuitive decision making. Okay, this is one key enterprise skill. This is about making sense of rapidly changing situations without the need to labor through any complex reasoning. Think about football, for example. If you have played football, you'd know that on the field there are players making rapid decisions in real time about their field placement and game strategy without pausing for analysis. They don't have the time to pull out a pen and paper, piece of paper and do trigonometry or projectile motion analysis to determine kick force. They don't do that. It just comes naturally to them. It is intuitive, and they act. And sometimes they do make mistakes, but expert players, now this is important, expert players make fewer mistakes than novices. Now, to be a good intuitive decision maker, you will need to train your brain to become good at recognizing patterns. And what is the best way to become good at recognizing patterns? Create a plan for learning something intensive that you do not know, like, for example, computer programming, a new language, or even welding. Choose one or two new things, and that will most certainly take you out of your comfort zone. That's important, coming out of your comfort zone. Purposefully putting yourself in a situation where you will not be in your comfort zone is key here. If you're not willing to purposefully do this, then don't expect to learn a key enterprise skill, because this is what it takes to rewire your brain to recognize new patterns. If you stick with the plan and follow through, you will emerge more skillful and a better version of yourself, more geared towards enterprise. Going through these motions of being put out of your comfort zone will be hard. Naturally, it will be hard. But be mindful. There will be an investment in time, an investment in energy, and also money. You cannot truly learn new things for free. Choose your teachers carefully and plan this exercise so that its demands don't take you past your breaking point. Everybody has a breaking point. Don't go past your breaking point. And that is the point where you'll put up your hands and say, look, I can't do this anymore. So you must understand what that point is and remain just underneath. And finally, you can't do this just once and then stop for the rest of your life. If you want to remain an intuitive decision maker throughout your 20s, 30s, and beyond, you will need to have a plan. This plan is all about putting yourself regularly out of your comfort zone, learning new things, training your brain to remain tactile and to recognize new patterns. I'm middle-aged. I have a busy work-life schedule. I've had to fit in two new things to learn to keep exercising my intuitive decision-making skills. I'm learning Futha Arabic and I'm learning Muay Thai kickboxing. Every time I put on my sparring kit and face my opponent in the gym, I get a real sense of fear. I don't like getting hit. And I've never liked getting hit, but it puts me out of my comfort zone. It also hurts. But over time, I'm understanding how my body works and the value of technique, flexibility, footwork, and how to understand my opponent, their weaknesses, and how to exploit them. Now, in a sense, the world of business is a bit like fight sport, if you think about it. If you do boxing or any other martial art, and not just watch it on TV, if you actually do it, then this notion would make sense that there are similarities between fight sport, and business. If you can't see those patterns, it is because you've never done fight sport. And that's the point that I'm trying to make here.
And what about entrepreneurship skills?
All right, well, to develop entrepreneurship skills, you should first build up your enterprise skill set. You need to have those skills first. Let's not try to run before we have learned to walk. Okay, you can try, but you could be setting yourself up for failure because they're more technical in nature. Failure in entrepreneurship can be expensive, it can be soul-breaking. However, for the expert entrepreneur, somebody who's very skilled at entrepreneurship, they purposefully design their entrepreneurial journey to account for high rates of new startup failure. That's a fact. A vast proportion of new ventures, unfortunately, do fail. On average, it is about 2.5 failures to one success. And we see this pattern vividly repeated in the case of Farhan Masood as well. He failed numerous times before he began succeeding. Now, Farhan put into action an entire range of enterprise and entrepreneurship behaviors. He fostered these skills over many years when he set up his new organization, Solo Tech. Now, he grew up within a particular socio-economic, cultural, and family context. That's fundamental to understand. And this context, no doubt, instilled in him certain qualities, certain tendencies, which you could call enterprise and entrepreneurship behaviors. It would be fair to ask questions like, why didn't Farhan's siblings become entrepreneurs like him? After all, they experienced similar conditions. He had brothers and sisters. Was there something special about Farhan? Perhaps some genetic advantages that gave him an edge? If Farhan had all of these abilities naturally, then is there any purpose in studying enterprise and entrepreneurship? Now, these are tricky questions, and I have to say the answer to the last question is absolutely. There is value in studying enterprise and entrepreneurship because it is all about developing skills, and these skills can be learned with practice. So, for example, take technological prowess, which is a key entrepreneurship skill. Simply put, it is about you developing the ability to assess the potential uses of science and technology and engineering for problem solving. Solutions to most commercial problems have some kind of a science or engineering dimension. But where do you get the technology from? Okay? If you're not an engineer or scientist yourself, you've got to source it from somewhere else. I suggest that to develop this skill, you need to do several things. First, it is about keeping yourself informed purposefully, not casually. Purposeful action to keep yourself informed. Keep abreast with technological advancements by reading about developments in your areas of interest on specialist websites. Maybe watch expert talks or attend relevant events such as trade shows and conferences. Second, realize that there is technology for sale. Plan a visit to your local patent or intellectual property office. Okay, seek their assistance to search for newly filed interest. So, for example, if you're interested in biofuels, look for patents going back 3 or 4, 5 years in biofuels in your own country, and you'll find that there is technology available. Read through those patents. Don't be intimidated by the language. It could be technical, but it is understandable. Take your time. Most patents just sit in databases and no one cares. 97% of all awarded patents do not make any money. Just as a test, choose a few patents. They will have contact details of the inventors who filed them. Phone them, email them, pursue them, get in touch, and begin a conversation about taking their technology to market. Remember, inventors are usually not business savvy, and if they're reasonable, then any offer to help them to make their invention to the market would be a godsend. So you might be at a university, step out of your department and go and meet other senior technologists or researchers. Ask them if they have developed some new science or technological gadgets or products that could have market potential. Examine them, ask them questions about it, and then try and structure a deal with them where you could help them take what they've developed to market for an ownership stake. Okay? So if you're doing these things, then you're exercising your entrepreneurial technological prowess.
What you are suggesting sounds to be doable, just a bit tedious.
You're absolutely right. Developing any skill does require repetitive work. There's this 10,000 hour rule, which Malcolm Gladwell talks about in his book, which has been challenged. However, it is a good rule of thumb. You do need to clock up many hours of practice. For some, it takes a lifetime to master these skills, which is why, and this is a fun fact, that the average age of the successful entrepreneur is 41. 41. It is 41. Most individuals run out of steam and give up. They prefer to take the more traditional employment route. But this does not have to be the case. What we have attempted to do is to create very doable and also fun routines that can be very quickly used to build a viable entrepreneurship and enterprise skill set in any individual who wants to retain the choice of pursuing an alternative career.
You mentioned earlier skill and behavior. What is the difference between the two?
We must make the important distinction between skill and behavior. Now, behavior is automatic programming, and in business, it is about putting your skills to use. It is not analytical because it becomes second nature to you. That is what behavior is. It becomes second nature. So, for example, expert entrepreneurs depict this kind of behavior. They can quickly learn something new, try it out, be resilient, and if it doesn't work out, then they try again. Okay? But this behavior seems possible because they have a well-developed skill set. Skills are important. They are things that you know how to do very, very well. But without the right behavior, they would stagnate and they will not work for you. So think about grit, for example, or determination to succeed, or self-belief, or confidence, strong desire to be independent. These are important entrepreneurial behaviors that cannot be easily taught. I mean, how can you teach somebody grit or self-confidence? It cannot be taught that easily. You develop grit through an internal conversation with yourself and harnessing your own willpower. How do you have internal conversations and harness your willpower? You do that through entrepreneurship and enterprise skills.
Thank you. Thank you.